Hi, Carrie Ann. How are you?
Hi, Ray. I'm great.
I understand that you're doing a major project, the expansion of a library in our library system in the city of Salinas. So what makes that different than any other library that we've expanded in the past?
Well, we have three libraries, of course, in the city of Salinas right now. We've got the John Steinbeck Library, we've got the Cesar Chavez Library, and we have the El Gabilan Library. And of course, the El Gabilan is one of our older libraries. It is only 3,500 square feet, so it's very, very small for a branch library. And we have known for years and years that it was really too small to provide the service that Salinas residents need in the northern part of Salinas. So we've had plans for a long time to be able to really transform the El Gabilan Library into a 21st century library. It opened, I believe, back in the late 50s, early 60s, and if you go there today, you will kind of feel transported back into that place in time. It is a very small library. It is very dated, whereas we have upgraded it and added some technology, and computer use is very popular there, but because of the size of the facility, it just can't provide the types of service that Salinas residents really need right now. So it's an exciting project. It's one of those things that as a library director, you don't get to build very many libraries usually. And so the possibility of being able to transform a 3,500 square foot building and perhaps at least double, probably at least triple it in size, I think is going to be amazing.
Right. So where's the library located? What part of the city does it serve?
The library is in, what we would probably call the northern part of Salinas. It's on North Main Street, very close to where the mall is. So it's a very retail location, very, very high traffic. And I think that's really going to impact how it's used in the future. And probably not only will serve residents of North Salinas, but probably residents throughout the city, just because people may be going shopping at the mall, they may be going to Target, they may be going to Safeway. Let's stop by the library on the way.
Right. So libraries, as I understand it, have been transforming themselves over the last 10 years into different kinds of operations, different facilities for the community. Mm-hmm. When you say modern library for our community, what does that mean to you?
Well, libraries used to be thought of as warehouses for books. They were really all about the books, and they still are. We still do care about books in libraries, we do, but in the 21st century, libraries are much more about people, places for neighbors to be able to meet, places for community groups to have a meeting, places for teenagers and preteens to work on robotics, learn how to code, take an art class, where adult students may be working on their GED, they may be working on learning a new language. And so libraries are much more about people rather than just about the books anymore.
Do you have sort of a sense or idea what might be trending in terms of our community and what they might expect the new library or expanded mm-hmm. library to be? What kind of services, what kind of collections? Mm-hmm. Will it have computers? What are the attributes or characteristics maybe that this library may have or could consider?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's really the process that we're going through right now, because libraries are not one size fits all. a library needs to serve the community that it's in. So that's really the process that we're going through right now. Some people may want us to jump in and design a building and build it right now, but we're in that needs assessment phase right now where we're talking to the community and asking them what they want that library to be. So we've held several focus groups and also working with our architectural consultants, worked through those focus groups. We've had a community meeting. Right now we have a community survey going on to ask residents what they need. And the types of questions that we're asking to go through this aren't necessarily just focused on, okay, what do you want in library services, but they're looking at what community needs are. So what are the community needs there in North Salinas for that particular neighborhood? And so many of the things that we're hearing right now through the focus groups, through the community meeting, and through the early results from the survey are that people want someplace, a safe place for kids to be after school, to be able to do their homework, to engage in STEAM-related activities. And when I say STEAM, I mean a lot of people talk about STEM being science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. We also add an A in there and make it STEAM for the arts, because arts are really equally important. So that's something that's really been expressed through all those avenues. They want places for seniors to be too. So many times seniors feel very homebound. They want a safe place they can be out in the community to meet other people. So that's definitely been expressed. The ability for adults to be able to hold a community meeting, to be able to just sit down with a neighbor, have a cup of coffee, read a book, talk about books, talk about what's going on in the community. Technology has been mentioned many times. As I said before, while we do have public computing in that building right now, there is usually a long wait for computers. So we want to be able to have plenty of room for technology. And the other thing that I think is really important, and especially as we've built other libraries in the city, we've seen the need for space to be flexible. So where this area over here might be needed to be used as a computer lab right now, maybe next week it needs to be a robotics program, and maybe the next week, or maybe in the afternoon even, it needs to be ready to be an art class. And so the need to really build flexible space in there is something that we're seeing.
Right, so you're getting feedback already from the community
yes.
in the kinds of meetings that you have. When will the survey results be ready for the public to look at?
Our consultants will be reporting back to the Library and Community Services Commission on the results of the needs assessment at their February meeting. So that's the second Wednesday in February. So they'll be reporting back to the commission on kind of what they've heard, and then we'll be moving from there into the program development phase. And by program development, I mean building program development. So they'll be taking those needs assessments and saying, okay, if the community really wants these types of activities going on in these types of spaces, how does that translate into this much space for kids and this much space for technology, this much space for staff, this much for books, that kind of thing. So they'll take that needs assessment information and actually turn it into what you need in the way of building space.
Good. Now you've mentioned the consultant several times. Tell us about the consultant. People think of consultants as either good or not so good. What does the consultant add to the project in terms of trying to develop it, organize it, and finally maybe design it?
We're working with Anderson Brule Architects. A lot of times people think that architects build buildings, and they do build buildings, and that of course is our goal, to build a library building. But one of the things that architects also bring to a project like this is the ability to translate community needs into a building. And I think that's the most important part of building a library, is to be able, this isn't just a building. This is a community service. And so Anderson Brule Architects have built many, many libraries in the Bay Area, in the Central Coast area as well as nationally. So they have a great knowledge of what the trends are in the way of libraries. They also tend to check back in the previous buildings that they've built to be able to see how they're being used and how that building has translated into services. So they have a great deal of experience along those lines, and the meetings that they've conducted for the community right now really have been focused not on a building at this point, but on what community needs are.
Right. Now, in the selection of the consultant, this is the question I always receive, but was the public invited to participate? Did they weigh in to help to select the consultant? Was there a way to engage the community in that process?
We involved the Library and Community Services Commission in that selection process, but because this was an architectural selection process, we did have a committee of staff members as well as inviting some of our commission members to sit on that selection panel and interview the architects.
So give us an idea of the schedule, if you will. You mentioned the survey would be done sometime in February. What are the other major milestones that you're trying to achieve in looking at what the public wants, the final design, and perhaps the start of construction, which is sounding very exciting.
It is. It really is. So we'll be moving into the building program development stage probably towards the end of February, finish the needs assessment phase, moving into building program. And so, that'll really be looking at what types of space, how much space for different functions, what's next to what, that kind of thing. And again, we'll be doing a community meeting on March 23rd in the evening at Sherwood Hall to be able to kind of talk about that building program and get more input from the community. After the building program phase in the late spring, we'll be moving more into schematic design, which still doesn't get you to a building.
Right.
So you still don't necessarily have a total building design yet, but again, you're looking at those spaces that you've developed and what's next to what and how the building sits on the site and that kind of thing. So again, there'll be more opportunity for public feedback. There'll be some community meetings involved in that. So, and you get closer and closer to actually building a building and showing what it's going to look like, and also, most importantly, how much it's going to cost. So our current project really ends with being able to come back to City Council and to be able to show that schematic design and to be able to show this is how it's going to sit on the site, this is going to be kind of the look and feel, and then this is how much it's going to cost. And then at that point, when we feel comfortable with moving forward, and this should happen, we would hope in the fall of 2017, then to give our architects the okay to go ahead and move into the construction of actual building construction documents.
Okay.
So that's where we really actually get ready to build a building. So we would hope to be breaking ground, if all goes well, sometime in 2018.
Well, that's pretty exciting.
And construction time should be, from what our architects are saying right now, around 12 to 14 months. So we may not be opening a building in 2018, but maybe soon after that in 2019.
Okay, so the big question, so how much do you think it might cost? You don't have the estimates in with all the programs.
We don't have the estimates, and I think it's really too soon to say that at this point. we need to again see what the community needs are really, and some of that is going to drive how much space we need. So I think we're still a little bit short of being able to say this is what the budget's going to be until we know what our needs are.
Right. So, well, let's assume this all goes forward and the construction starts. What happens to the library services that El Gavilan is providing now, while that construction happens before the expansion actually opens?
And that's a huge concern, I think, to everyone, because even though that building is small, only 3,500 square feet, it does serve a lot of people
Right.
on a daily basis. So being able to continue to offer library services in North Salinas is a concern to us. And as soon as we know what our timing is going to be as far as demolition of the current building, then we'll be reaching out to perhaps some partners in that area, other educational institutions, for example, to be able to see what we might find in the way of space to be able to set up temporary shop. I know that same thing happened when the Cesar Chavez Library was closed several years ago. There was a temporary location set up with a school, and it's possible that something like that could happen again. But as we get closer to that time, we'll explore that further, because I don't think we're ready to just not have library services in North Salinas. I think we're going to need to work something out.
Right. So the site where the library will be expanded includes a brand new credit union.
It does.
Correct?
It does.
So are there some opportunities for partnerships there with the credit union?
Oh, absolutely. And the credit union has been such a great partner already in the construction phase for the credit union. Credit union staff was kind of great to involve us and continue to give us tours and let us know how the construction process was working. There's a community room that's within the credit union right now that we've been using from time to time, for example, to have our construction meetings. Credit union is really open to letting us use that for some library programming as well.
Oh, great.
So they've been a great partner. A lot of the initial survey and technical work on the site was done for the site as a whole, so that's going to lower probably some of our pre-construction costs because of some of the work that was done already by the credit union in that process. So I think that's helped us a lot. We will have shared parking. We anticipate that there will be the parking lot that's there will be shared by the library and the credit union. So during times, for example, when the credit union is closed in the evening and library programming may be going on, we have a lot more space for parking.
Right. So that's one partner. Are there potentially other partners that, in terms of the development or the actual operation of the library, the expanded library?
Certainly. I think that, well, as far as I'm concerned, libraries are all about education.
Right.
And so some of our best partners can be schools, other educational institutions, and being able to share programming and share programmers, staff to be able to have different programs going on, not only in the schools but in our libraries themselves, I think could be really, really important. So during this needs assessment phase and that building program phase is where we really want to be talking and reaching out to some of those partners to see, do they see the El Gavilan Library as part of maybe an expansion of their programming in our site. If so, we might need to have a larger building than what we're currently anticipating. So this is really kind of the time to be thinking through all of that.
So what are your worst fears in terms of the expansion of the library? There's always issues in terms of, construction, financing, a number of other things, even programs.
Well, one of my greatest concerns is always money, because we all know that construction costs are doing nothing but going up right now. And, that's one thing as we've been talking to our consultants. they've shared that the sooner that you can build this library, the cheaper it will be, because construction costs are not going to go down anytime soon. Just that the industry is just, and the demand is causing them to go up. So it's always a balancing act to provide as many services as you possibly can, and do that cost benefit analysis to make sure that you're spending the right amount of money. And so I am a little worried that we won't be able to provide as much in the way of square feet as we would like because of cost.
Right. So in terms of cost also on the operational side, you have two other libraries.
Mm-hmm.
How will the operations be affected with the expansion of El Gabilan?
Yeah. Well, I would assume that there will be more kind of service pressure on our other two libraries, because even if we do have another temporary location somewhere in North Salinas, it may not be as large, it may not offer as many services, and so that may put pressure on our other two libraries. We are really working in all of our libraries right now to upgrade our technology, to offer more self-service opportunities that then free up our staff to be able to interact with customers in more of a value-added way. For example, instead of my checking out your book for you or checking it back in, can I help you find a new author? Can I do another story time program? And so we look at the application of technology in offering service in ways not necessarily to reduce the number of staff that we have, but to be able to put more value-added services within our libraries. And so we really hope that even though we're increasing the square footage of El Gabilan, we're not necessarily looking at we'll be needing more staff. Because of that, our existing staffing configuration may work very well, even though we're enlarging that building.
And some of that will be dependent on the design,
Absolutely.
final design of the building.
Absolutely.
Right?
But that's another plus of the architectural consultants that we're using now, is because they have built so many library buildings and they're very aware of library technology and the trends involved there, that we can make sure that those self-service opportunities are built into the library design rather than having to retrofit them later. I've retrofitted a lot of libraries that were not built for self-service technology, and sometimes it's just really hard to ever get there if you didn't think about it first.
So just in making sure the public understands where you are in the process and what they can expect as the next steps, what opportunities are you taking to make sure they're informed along the process as you design, as you do the outreach, as you come to final construction drawings, and then go to construction itself? So how will you inform the
Well,
public?
we're trying to keep our staff informed, and I think that's one of the most important things that we can do, because most of the people who are coming into our libraries take time to chat with our staff, and so if our staff is informed about what's going on, they're going to be able to relate the right information. We also have on the city's website, we have a page that just deals with the El Gabilan Library, and will let people know when meetings are coming up. It'll kind of be the repository for the minutes from community meetings, the results that come out of those community meetings, the results of the survey, that kind of thing. So that'll be a repository of information. We also do a weekly newsletter to our library card holders. So if they have an email address entered into their library account with us, then they receive an email from us on a weekly basis, letting them know everything that's going on. Well, maybe not everything, but the highlights of what's going on within the library. So that's been a great tool for us in getting the word out about the survey. Every time we send out another newsletter and we put a little article about the survey in there, we always see a bump in survey responses. So that's been really helpful in being able to communicate with people.
Great. Are there any other things that you need to make sure the public knows about as you're in initial phase of fact gathering, information gathering, preferences, what the community wants, what the community doesn't want. Are there any other important items that you want to make sure the public knows about?
I just want people to be aware of the fact that this is their library. You know, this is not my library. That this is the community's library, and so being able to express what those needs are. I really hope. I think sometimes people are with library meetings. I see that people are maybe a little bit intimidated about coming to a meeting on designing a library. You have a meeting about a park and you get a lot of people show up. You have a meeting about a library and maybe you don't get quite so many people. It may be a little bit intimidating, but I think people need to think of it in terms of not necessarily, you're not designing a library building, you're talking about what community needs are. And as a library, we're trying to fulfill those community needs. So we really hope that, especially we'll see more people at our March 23rd meeting to be able to come and talk to us about that building design. And we probably will have more surveys out there in the future too. So we really hope for all of that input.
Well, it sounds like a very successful project so far. And I know the community's anticipating this with a lot of excitement, expectation, and I'm sure that it'll be the kind of project that really will enhance the community's assets. And it will be, hopefully, the library of the future.
It will be a transformation, definitely.
Right.